Hello and welcome back to BS Rugby. One of the biggest issues surrounding rugby at the minute is the issue of concussion. How does the game deal with concussion? How does it deal with it on the field, off the field, at the pro level, at grassroots level? It's certainly something that needs to be looked at. And with the recent incident in the England under-20s against Italy under-20s game, which highlighted how the situation was being dealt with at the pro level, I thought it'd be fascinating to get someone's thoughts on this who understood the situation well and had experienced concussion and the effects of it himself. Today, I spoke with Stuart Course, a former Glasgow Warriors prop, had been capped at age level by Scotland and capped for Scotland Day as well, and sadly had to retire due to the effects of concussion. We had a look at the incident from that under-20s game and discussed it in depth, how it was dealt with, what should have happened. Had a look at the protocols by World Rugby. There will be the link to that page in the description down below if you want to have a read of it yourself. And then we had a look at how rugby needs to work and how it needs to develop its ways of dealing with concussion. Just before we get into the video, massively appreciate if you could give the video a like if you do go on to enjoy it. Share it with friends and family and rugby community so they are more aware of the situation. Hit the subscribe button as well. It's completely free to do. Helps you keep up to date with the channel. Loads of content going out at the minute because of the Six Nations, of course. Anyway, that's enough for me. Let's get straight into it. We're going to jump in as we look at the footage from the game between England under-20s and Italy under-20s. Second after this. So this is the incident.
Yes.
He landed
Okay.
on his head. And this is the referee.
Thank you so much. Please, substitution.
Is it a red card then, him landing on his head?
No. We have a control. It's not foul play. Thank you. Bye.
You do? Thanks.
No.
It's my decision on the pitch. They can ask me, but I've assessed him.
We have a doctor of...
The doctor,
No.
and we've assessed him.
It's a match doctor to decide the situation. So if it is HIA, you have a substitution. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the situation there with the incident. So the incident is that it's a player called Diago Bailey. He's gone up for the high ball. He's landed on his head clearly. Watching that clip, you can clearly see there are a few issues there. The player clearly doesn't want to go off. That's very apparent. He does not want to go off. And then at the end, we see that dispute between the team doctor and the independent doctor. Can you give me your initial reaction to that clip? What's going on in that clip?
For me, like, there's obviously an injury. It's the head knock. It's landed on his head, so that's a big concern. And you see the staff on the sideline pointing it out and obviously going on to attend to the player. So if he's landed on his head, there's going to be concern, about his head, and could there be a concussion? So, like, common sense would be we need to take him off to make sure that he's all right, go through the HIA process. Now, players are always going to lie, so he'll probably just say he's fine, a bit dazed, but he probably wouldn't say that. He'd just be like, I'm good to go. But it's up to the medical staff and to the referees to make sure that the player is safe. And the referee did the right thing, as far as I'm concerned, and the way how the England medical team dealt with it was very poor and very disrespectful as well. So, that's just a quick snapshot of what I see. And the referee did the right thing. She was good. She stood by her guns and she thought about the player welfare more than anything else, which is what we need to see.
Yeah, definitely. I thought before some of the protocols to try and understand where the referee is coming from, where the team are coming from. This is what must happen with a HIA. So there are some important points in there. So the first one is about players who have to leave the pitch and aren't allowed to come back on. So if a player is displaying obvious on-pitch signs of concussion, they are immediately and permanently removed from play, and the completion of the off-field screening tool is not required. So that basically says to me that if it's so obvious that they've got concussion, there's no need to do any tests. It's just obvious. They leave the game. That's it. They have to leave the pitch and they won't be coming back at all. In the England case then, the under-20 case there, it seemed as if it wasn't completely obvious that there were concussion. He'd obviously landed on his head, which would then lead to the suspicion of concussion, which is what follows up here. It says, in any other case where players have the potential for concussion, but without clear on-pitch symptoms or signs, undergo an off-field assessment consisting of a medical room clinical evaluation by an attending doctor supported by the multi-module screening tool and video review. So for those who are showing potential symptoms or signs of concussion, they have to go off regardless. As you said there, looking at the way the England team dealt with it there, looking at how they looked at that situation, it was clear and obvious that he'd landed on his head. So for them to just say, no, he's fine, he doesn't need the HIA, clearly the protocol's there, say if there's any suspicion, he has to go do a HIA.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's right there in black and white. So the player should just came off, went through the process, and then returned to the field if they felt that he passed. So I mean, it's there in black and white why they didn't do it, and you wouldn't like to think it, but maybe it's the player's just gone. He was just trying to milk a penalty, or he's fine. And I mean that happens as well. It's creeping into rugby where players are, going down the acting sides rather than the playing side sometimes. But it doesn't matter either way that the referee was right and put the player off the pitch. And the medical staff from the England team should be pretty disappointed in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end there in the clip, we saw the dispute between the referee and the England medical team. And I had to look at who does the HIA, who's in charge of that, who runs it, and who has the final say. And interestingly enough, there's quite a bit to go through here, but this is how it works. MNDD stands for independent doctor. That's what that means. So it says if a player is cleared to return to play, returns to play, but the independent doctor is concerned or notices signs or the player complains of symptoms suggestive of a concussion, a discussion between the team doctor and independent doctor should be undertaken. Every effort should be made to arrive at a consensus around management of individual cases. But this is the big line for me. If a dispute persists, the MDD has the right to request another off-field screen independent of the team doctor or to unilaterally remove the player from the field. This should not be done without extensive discussion with the team doctor. So it clearly says there that the independent doctor has the right to say, no, he's not going back on, regardless of what you say, it's my choice. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the England medical team either weren't aware of that or potentially maybe because they were losing the game. Do you think that played a factor in it as well?
Yeah, I think that they'd have known the rules and all that because they're professionals. They need to know all this information, so they obviously knew what was happening. And yeah, it could have been just because they were stressed because they were losing, or maybe just because the player admitted he was just trying to milk it. You don't know what happened. You don't know that conversation between the doctor and the player was. So, but as I say, it's there in black and white. The independent doctor's there for a reason. And, they need the input from the team doctor because obviously the team doctor knows the players better than the independent doctor. But at the end of the day, the independent doctor is there for the safety of the players because players will lie. And I'm not saying doctors will lie, team doctors will lie, but they might just sort of be a bit less cautious in certain scenarios, depending on the player or the situation or the pressure they're under. You wouldn't like to think that, but these obviously things do happen.
If we have a look at the wider scope, so we look at rugby in general, how do you feel like rugby is dealing with concussion now? Because we've had this HIA protocol in place for quite a while, and most of the time, 99% of the time, we do see the rules carried out properly. Of course, in years gone by, it would be how many fingers can I hold up and you're okay to carry on. How do you feel like rugby is dealing and coping with concussion on the field at the minute?
Obviously, the professional game is getting better. There's still cracks, there's still mistakes, and and things will still be brought up that we've not sort of looked after the players, and these things will happen. You can't be 100% perfect all the time, and there's always going to be these mistakes to get through. Everyone's trying their best. We are trying to educate the players, but I do feel that it's good in the pro game maybe, but it's still really poor in the leagues below. You're still getting players that are wearing scrum caps because they think it protects against concussion. You've got the coaches, which are still forcing players to play. Referees who are not taking charge of the situation because they don't want to feel like they're siding towards one team because they want a player to go off for a head injury. So there's still, in the lower leagues, I think there's still a lot of issues. Pro game's getting better, but and it's people are recognizing the symptoms and obviously the long-term risk of the concussions, but it still needs to be better. Still need to keep improving what we're doing and sort of getting the word out there.
Yeah, and at community level, grassroots level, how do you think we can improve the situation? Obviously, you're not going to have an independent doctor at every grassroots game. It's just not going to happen. That's not how it works. But are there ways, or is it through education? Is it through programs? What do you think is the way to improve the awareness and for clubs? Because you never want to suggest that clubs would keep their players on because it's an important match or whatever it is, but that could certainly happen. Is it more of a case that a player needs to take responsibility, or it needs to be about educating, or is it a bit of everything?
I think it's a little bit of everything. As I say, like, it's not always the I think if a player went down with a head injury, there'd be a lot of coaches would be like, can you play on? They put the question onto the player. Whether it should be is that you're coming off. That's what it should be. And they just got to realize it doesn't matter how important the game is, that player's life is more important than a game of rugby. And I think that's where it comes down to the players being a bit more honest, and it is getting better. There's more concussions reported, which is good because people understand it's an important. They're talking about it, they're reporting it, but again, there's still just that sort of grey area in certain places. Like, the referee should have the final say on the pitches with us in the community game, because, as you say, there's no team doctor. Sometimes there's not even medical staff. So if the referee says that player's got to go off, they've got to go off, and that should be it. But again, then you're putting a lot of emphasis on a referee who's already got a hard job as it is. But again, got to keep educating players, educating the coaches, and the supporters as well. And education is great. We've got to keep piling out there, but you tend to see with all the education programs, it's the same players, the same coaches that turn up. It's the ones that are maybe not going to these courses, the ones that are not attending the CPDs. Those are the ones we've got to educate. So maybe we need higher standards regards to coach education. Maybe a case of that if you don't attend certain courses, you can't coach rugby. There has to be some sort of real and it's tough because it's all volunteers, and the volunteers are spending a lot of time already in the clubs. But again, we've got to hold them to a higher standard, because if it's a higher standard, the players will be safer, the quality of rugby, the quality of product would be better, and the quality of players will get better. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a circle in that sort of sense.
Yeah, and I think what you said there was about courses. And do you think it should be mandatory now that if you are going to become a coach, that you have to do a concussion awareness course or whatever it's called, and understand the roles? And at the end of the day, you are putting these players' lives in your hands by making those kind of decisions. So do you think it could become mandatory? Do you think it's something that unions need to be looking at?
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of unions do it. I know Scottish Rugby, the courses are put out that you have to do a education on concussion and player welfare, which is great. But again, you don't have to go into that much depth. Like, you could just tick a couple of boxes and get through it. Whether it's that actual people have realized the true side effects of concussion. We need to get probably more of the players who have suffered in the long term, maybe just to be a bit more vocal, like actual videos talking of their injuries and how it's affected them after rugby, and like the side effects. Because I think it's good reading on a paper, but until you're actually getting someone that is saying, right, look, I'm actually in a really bad way here, and it was because of concussions, and this is what's affected me now, it's maybe a bit scary. But it's maybe just sort of gives some coaches a bit of chance and players just to think, well, it's not worth it. And so again, clubs are probably, and a lot of the unions are doing stuff, but probably just needs to be more. And again, just because there's still a lot of people slipping through the cracks.
If we have a look at Aftercare, so the player's had his concussion, he's failed the HIA, or if it's at community level, he's just gone off the field. What should be the next steps for that player over the coming 24, 48 hours to ensure that he is safe to return to play?
It's just like observation. So like if we've got a player injured that's got a concussion, we always make sure that they've got someone with them for the next sort of 24, 48 hours. Again, it's in the community game, that's what we look at. we don't want those players to go home alone just in case they get side effects or anything happens to them when they're at home alone. So we always make sure they've got someone with them. Again, if the symptoms get any worse, that they go down to the hospital or phone their doctors. And that can be numerous things from sickness, dizziness. You've given them a list of symptoms that we all know about concussion, and just making sure that they don't have any of those side effects. Then after that 40 hours, it's a case of like they manage themselves. Again, because it's not a professional game. And again, we're relying on these players to be honest with us. And, if they're not, that's the problem, because they might turn up to training on Tuesday. If any decent coach would be like, you're not actually going here to train, you can watch a week, 2 weeks off, depending on the severity. But I mean, most times it's a 2 weeks mandatory, 3 weeks you're looking at. They shouldn't be training. Then after that, it's just gradual return to play of like running, see how they go with that, and then the contact. But the longer the better. I think that if they've got concussion, the longer the better. I think 3 weeks is we should be looking at, and then return to play from that. They need a few weeks of no symptoms.
Finally, just before we finish, talk to me a bit about Big Rig Rugby. Tell me a bit about what you guys do.
So we do quite a few various things. So we're actually looking now at doing a load of like neck strength work exercises to give to coaches and to players, because it's been shown that obviously the stronger neck that you have, the less chance of concussion. Doesn't cut concussion out completely, but it helps reduce the chances of receiving concussion, because a lot of it comes from that whiplash effect with your brain bobbing about in your skull. So we're just trying to encourage coaches and players to do like neck strengthening exercises in sessions. But yeah, we also work delivering loads of rugby programs, contact safety, just making sure that people are tackling properly and getting coached properly as well. So we do a little bit of work with that in the local community, and we're starting to do a bit more stuff online as well. So yeah, we've helped out a lot of clubs work with players and do a bit of work with coaches. So there's always something exciting to keep us going. And but yeah, I mean, for us, it's probably going to go back into the neck strength, back in the contact safety, a big focus on that.
So there we go. Massive shout out to Stuart there for his thoughts. There'll be a link to everything that he's involved in down in the description down below. Make sure to go and check everything he does out. It's fantastic work raising awareness around the issues in the game. Thank you very much, folks, for watching. If you have enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I am going to be streaming on YouTube in about half an hour when this video comes out. I'll be streaming some Rugby 22, so come along and say hello. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. It's pretty windy, and I will see you soon. Peace.